Where is all your extra spendable money at? I bet you a lot of you are wondering where that money's supposed to be. Well, that was with a 2019 economy, not a 2023 economy. And everybody knows everything's just, ain't all, I didn't come out smelling like roses. Trust me on that one.
Now, last night, Biden called on Congress to rein in tech companies. What do you make of his rallying call?
I don't agree with President Biden on just about anything except for his bipartisan antitrust proposals and appointments related to antitrust. We absolutely need to come together as a country, Republicans and Democrats, and rein in big tech's gatekeeping power over information and commerce. Google, Amazon, Facebook, and Apple have too much power. They use their monopoly power to crush competition, shutter small businesses, and cancel conservatives and others with whom they disagree. And this is a rare bipartisan closing window of opportunity for Republicans and Democrats to come together and finally do something about that, and that is bipartisan antitrust enforcement and reforms.
Biden has already made some progress on this front, appointing some of the industry's toughest critics to key regulatory roles. But observers say that this speech could signal a watershed moment. What's your take?
I think this speech was directed at Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, the Democrat from New York. The problem is that Chuck Schumer has been talking a big game like many politicians do in Congress, Republican and Democrat. But when it comes down to actually doing something about it, they're not doing something about it. The problem, I think, is Chuck Schumer takes too much of big tech's money. One of his daughters apparently is a lobbyist for big tech. The other one works for big tech. It's time for Chuck Schumer to put up or shut up. And it's time for him to support bipartisan antitrust reforms. The reason they didn't pass the Senate last Congress is Chuck Schumer held them up. And I think President Biden coming forward in his State of the Union address and making this a focus is a signal to Chuck Schumer. It's time for Chuck Schumer to get the heck out of the way.
And so do you think that we're likely to see more progress now?
I think we are. I mean, we already are seeing progress with Jonathan Cantor, the head of the antitrust division at the Justice Department. It is the one part of the Biden Justice Department that is actually functioning properly. And the Internet Accountability Project supported Jonathan Cantor's nomination to this position, and he won bipartisan support. And he's already filed 2 lawsuits against Google, one against Google's search monopoly and one recently against Google's online advertising monopoly. And if they can win either or both of those lawsuits, it's going to go a long way into breaking up Google's gatekeeping power over information and commerce.
Now, major tech companies are among the top lobbying spenders in Washington, but they've shown that they won't take these changes without a fight, running aggressive TV and social media campaigns last year against antitrust legislation. Do you think this next election cycle could impact Congress's efforts to pass stricter rules?
Definitely. This is there are people inside of Washington, the lobbyists, the swamp, who absolutely do not want to break up big tech. They like the status quo. They're making a lot of money off of the status quo. And these bipartisan antitrust reforms do not have popular support within the swamp, but they have overwhelming popular support out in the real world, real Americans in the real world. And I hope it does become a presidential issue because Google, Amazon, Facebook, and Apple are going to lose this political fight.
And finally, the House.
It is having a devastating impact on Virginians and across America. Enough people die from overdoses in America today that's the equivalent of a fully loaded 727 crashing every day. And in Virginia, we lose four Virginians a day to overdoses. So we have pushed for legislation declaring fentanyl a weapon of mass destruction. We are supporting law enforcement officials and their policies to go after these drug dealers that are lacing it. But at the end of the day, this is a lack of will by the Chinese Communist Party in allowing the export of all of these chemicals that are causing such death and destruction right now with so many families across America, and it's tragic.
And Attorney General it seems more and more states are taking action, especially on TikTok. They're banning it on state devices and government devices. But it's not just TikTok, right? We're also seeing several states are either barring or looking into stopping the Chinese Communist Party and other foreign governments from buying or investing in our agricultural land. So how crucial is this local approach to countering the Chinese regime, and what role do you see it playing in the future of national security?
Well, we have seen Governor Youngkin in Virginia. He included this in his State of the Commonwealth address, that for national security reasons, he did not want to allow the Chinese Communist Party to be able to own lands in Virginia, particularly near sensitive military bases. We've seen that throughout the Midwest. We've seen that near some of our strategic air command bases and locations, and that should trouble every single American. I think the Chinese balloon incident that we just saw woke a lot of people up to the idea that the CCP is actively seeking to spy and surveillance on Americans and American military installation and to collect information on Americans. That's one of our concerns about social media devices like TikTok, is what are the information that they are collecting on Americans and who are they giving it to? And as you know, there is really no separation. The idea of private ownership, private property rights in China is unheard of. You could be a private, independently owned company, but at any time, the CCP could come in and take away the company away from you, just like they did with Jack Ma, and they can order and direct them to turn over information. That should really, really concern every American. As we look and we see that this is a rival power right now that views the United States as a rival, and we need to wake up and be cognizant of that fact.
When Nikki Haley reacts by saying America deserves better than Joe Biden. Haley's expected to announce her 2024 presidential bid in just a week. Reporting from the White House, Iris Howe, NTD News.
Say it was a mistake. And we'll bring you reaction from House Judiciary member Representative Mike Johnson on the committee's latest hearings. The congressman will also weigh in on the government encouraging social media platforms to censor Americans.
Changing, transforming the society had to begin with a critical assessment of it, and that's pretty close to what he said, actually. And he said it was revolutionizing. He wanted it to be something to overthrow the existing system with, and put in place an alternative system.
You lost me. One of the proponents is a Columbia law professor. I'm sure you know who she is, Kimberly Crenshaw.
Yeah.
And after the death of Tyree Nichols, following the beating of these by those 5 black Memphis police officers, she wrote something to the effect of, that was an example of structural anti-black police racism, where they are, quote, targeting communities of color, close quote. And I wrote, well, the fact is, you look at the 75 most populous counties in America, blacks at 13% of the population commit 60% of the homicides, of the robberies, of the shootings. That's why the cops are there. A young black man, ages 10 to 34, Mike, is 13 times more likely to be murdered than a young white male the same age. Almost always that murderer is a young black male. That's why the police are there. And 81% of blacks, according to Gallup, want the police in their neighborhoods to have their manpower maintained or to be increased. This is what this critical race theory leads us to.
No, exactly. And it really is a shame that communities have to go unpoliced because of these wrong-headed policies. I was just in New York, and I saw heavy police presence in the subway at 42nd Street and 34th Street. I took the subway in Harlem at 125th Street. There was zero police presence. That is not fair. That is not fair to places that want order, that want to be able to enjoy lives as Americans, just like the people on 42nd Street and 34th Street do. Yeah, it's not people who are well off who are going to be hurt by this. I've been poor in my life, Larry, and I can tell you that I know who's going to be hurt by this is the poor.
Mike, I just read a piece written by this guy who says the police ought not police traffic stops anymore, ought not pull over people for violating traffic laws. Who's that going to hurt? Safe drivers and pedestrians living in the very areas, black and brown areas, that people on the left claim that they care about.
You know, with this Memphis we don't have the information yet. We need to wait until the investigation is done. But there's a lot of questions to be asked here. Who hired these 5 policemen? How were they trained? Were standards lowered? You know, what happened here? What decisions were made? And I think until there's a thorough investigation, and I hope one is done that's free of politics, I would like to refrain from commenting on it, but by golly, we need to get to the bottom of this.
Well, I have read that they did lower standards in Memphis, not only standards about strength and endurance, but also about minor instances in their backgrounds. The biggest police scandal in the history of LA, where I am, Mike, is the Rampart scandal, which inspired the movie Training Day starring Denzel Washington. The lead guy, his name was Rafael Perez, was turned down by half a dozen law.
We all know what happened to Rodney King. But Rodney wouldn't have gotten his ass kicked if he had just followed the simple tip. When you see flashing police lights in your mirror, stop immediately. Everybody knows, if the police have to come and get you, they're bringing an African with them. Here's a no-brainer. If you're listening to loud rap music, turn that off. Blasting police when you get pulled over by the police is just ignorant. When an officer approaches your car, be polite.
Is there a problem, officer?
And stay in your car with your hands on the wheel. What do you want? Want to give a friend a ride? Not so fast. Your friend might be crazy. Now, before you let your friend in your car, ask them these questions. Do you have a gun? Do you have drugs? Do you have any warrants? And in case you do get pulled over by the cops,
License and registration, please.
remind your friend to do this one thing. Shut the
Don't give him shit. What the you want?
Instead of removing it, they put another one here. It's supposed to be on private property, bird. Come get your junk. Last night, the entire neighborhood, the lights went out in my apartment, and I looked outside, street lights are on, and I looked again. Everything was black. Street lights, traffic lights, the entire neighborhood around my building was black. Lights out. First thing I thought about is, did somebody go shoot up some transformers like they did in Washington and Oregon? And somebody else tried to do that stuff. They got arrested.
By shooting out substations with sniper attacks. Officials identified the suspects as Sarah Beth Glenn Daniel of Baltimore County and Brandon Russell of Florida.
The accused were not just talking, but taking steps to fulfill their threats and further their extremist goals. Russell provided instructions and location information. He described attacking the power transformers as the greatest thing somebody can do.
The complaint also included a photo of a woman authorities identified as Glenn Daniel holding a rifle and wearing tactical gear that bore a swastika. Authorities said Russell has a long history of ties to racist groups and Nazi beliefs, as well as past plans to attack U.S. infrastructure systems. In recent months, domestic terrorists struck in Washington state and North Carolina, causing power outages affecting tens of thousands of customers by vandalizing substations. Following the powerful 7.8 magnitude earthquake that rocked the Turkey region, rescue crews are working tirelessly to help people trapped in the rubble of wrecked buildings. More than 3,400 people are confirmed dead in Turkey and Syria, and the death toll is expected to rise. This catastrophic disaster has captured the attention of the world, and efforts to help are coming into form around the globe. We'll have more on aid to Turkey coming up in our World Report. Back here in the States, a 3.8 magnitude earthquake shook western New York this morning, just over a mile northeast of West Seneca. You're looking at security footage from a home in Lancaster, New York, capturing the moment the quake hit. It was felt strongly by many people in the Buffalo area. Records show the quake is the strongest in the area in at least 40 years. The United States Geological Survey put the depth of the quake at 1.86 miles. There were no injuries reported. A blustering